All right. I think we all know each other. I mean, it's pretty much hosts. Um, so today we just want to talk about the different experiences from the summer, sort of doing internships that are external from Clark. And I want to know, like, how did we get the internship? What was that experience like? What did you do during the internship? And also, like, any challenges that you faced, like applying to internships slash um, like during having an internship during coronavirus. Like, were you virtual? Were you in person? How did you navigate that? And I know that like everyone here has a lot of different types of experiences, which I think is valuable to hear like a wide range of, like, someone might be being a software engineer and you might like also be doing something that's not like so strictly computer science related, but it's still extremely valuable to have computer science influencing that. Okay, so why don't we just go around and you have like 5 minutes to talk about those things. So, Evan, why don't we start with you? You're the first person I see on my screen.
All right, so I'm Evan. I'm a senior, and this past summer, I, along with Naomi, actually interned at Capital One in their technology internship program. And it was virtual, it was supposed to be in person. But because of coronavirus, they made it virtual, and it was 10 weeks long. And they send you the laptop and special access and stuff to all the Capital One's internal um, everything. And basically, you're assigned a team, like a real software engineering team within Capital One, and you basically either they give you some kind of task to do over the summer, like a project that works with what the team is working on, or like in my case, I was actually a part of the day-to-day team, so they were having me do stuff that they do like every day as software engineers full time, and I got to work on implementing a um, so I was assigned to the team within the company that works on their platform that allows internal document management and storage. So like a Google Docs, but they're not going to use that because they have like confidential company documents that do business with them. So they have their own kind of document management platform. And what I did was I was working on making an OCR capability within that, which is optical character recognition. So basically, companies give Capital One, like all their employees, is like W-2 forms as PDF, not as PDFs, as images, right? JPEG scans. And I go through that and I write, I make it so that you can easily extract like values, like someone's employee ID and stuff. And again, these are images, so you can't just like search that box. So it's using some kind of machine learning to pull out that value from each document. And I got a lot of experience with cloud technology, which I found very valuable. We used AWS, Amazon Web Services. And basically what cloud computing is all the coding that you do normally, from your computer, those kind of computations are instead done on the cloud. So it's more accessible to everybody in the world who needs to do or use that service. And I did a lot of coding in Python, did a lot of unit testing, and overall, I found it to be a very valuable experience. I was able to apply a lot of what I learned in class to the real world, right? Software engineering. And learning curve was steep, but I felt like I learned a ton and really accelerated my confidence in being able to graduate and enter this industry. So, thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about what the interview experience was? Like, how did you know to apply? How did that work?
Yeah, so this was my second internship, actually, summer internship. I had one the summer before at another company, a cybersecurity firm in Washington, D.C. And so I'd kind of gone through the process before, which is I basically monitored a bunch of online job postings and stuff and looked for when these internships opened up. And I actually made a list, which I can share with everyone, and we'll talk about that at the end. But they have these online postings, these online listings, and you apply to them. You send in your resume, some basic information about yourself. And if you're lucky, they'll get back to you. And there's an interview process, right? So it tends to start with some kind of online assessment. So they'll send you an online coding challenge. It's usually like on the platform HackerRank. If you pass that online coding challenge, they'll bring you to more behavioral questions where they're going to just talk about you. Like, tell me about a time that you had trouble working on a team. How did you resolve that issue? And then ultimately, if you get through those, they're going to bring you to an on-site or a final round. And in this case, this year, it's probably all going to be digital. But for Naomi and myself, they flew us down, all expenses paid. They flew us down to their offices, put us up in a hotel, and interviewed us for a few hours in person for the internship. So that's basically the interview process. And we're going to talk about how to go through that and navigate that a little later. But yeah, that's how I did it.
Thank you. Okay, so for the Zoom call, I see a row of co-hosts below me. So it goes Archie, Faustina, and then Chandra. Just like a heads up that you're coming soon. So Archie, do you mind going next? I'll put you on the spot.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I just didn't apply for this internship, but it's always been an ongoing process. I get an internship, do it like as soon as that internship ends, I'm trying to find something else to do. And it's just a constant process. And you, more than, interning, I would say go after the experiences that you want to have. First year, I ended up working at a hedge fund just because one of my friends' dad had an opening, and I got it. I just got a basic experience. At that point, I barely even know how to compile code. Then, I don't know, I was pushed into using some algorithms to find out valuations. And um, just to give a little bit background about what I'm talking about, I worked at a hedge fund, and they use very quantitative methods to calculate very complex financial products. So suppose there's a asset of loans. So how would different amounts of money will flow, and who has entitlement to how much money, and calculating all of that using computer science. Second year, I wasn't as lucky, and I didn't get a position in finance, but Professor Han recommended me this internship at Harvard, and I was building a simulation to track Ebola epidemic in Congo back then. And now that project has been shifted to coronavirus tracking. But over there, I learned a lot about how to code for specific purposes. And yeah, like no one, it was a very unstructured internship that they had an idea and they wanted me to do it, and they were like, oh, we don't know anything about computer science, just help us out. They gave me a few tools and I just started to build. And next year I wanted to get back into finance, so I started networking my second semester of sophomore year. So I would just message people on LinkedIn if I could get a coffee with them, maybe get on a call, just ask them, what do they do? What do they like? Do I really want to do this in future? Ultimately, I got to know a few people. One of them recommended me for the internship I was working at this summer. I was working at a French investment bank called Natixis, and I was working in their sales and trading department. And I was dealing mostly with money market funds and repo markets over there.
Thank you. That's really helpful to hear, like the different perspectives of like each year. It was a different approach.
Yeah.
Like with a different sort of format of an internship. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Faustina.
Hello. So this past summer, I got the opportunity to intern at EverQuote, which is basically like a one-stop shop for insurance quotes, whether you're looking for health insurance, auto insurance. And I was basically a software engineer. And this internship was completely different compared to like my previous internship because I worked at like a consulting company. So that one wasn't really focused on computer science as much as this year was. So, and also it was actually pretty interesting too, because I applied for a data platform to be on the data platform team. But the thing is like data, I tend to be scared of data. So I was like, I don't know if I should apply to this position. But I still did, even though it was a like a data platform internship. And so I actually really enjoyed it, even though it wasn't something that I initially thought that I was going to enjoy, because like I just took the chance to just, just go for it. I actually really enjoyed myself. And now I'm kind of in love with data, but not too much still. So this summer, since I was working on the data platform team, my task was to basically take in like information, because like customers, like when they're filling out forms on the Everquote website, I basically have to take that raw data and like transform it and basically just convert it and make it easier for analysts to be able to read it. And then not only that, but they also have like an internal site where analysts can like just get like revenue, like get a specific customers like information and stuff like that. And so like I also had to basically take all that back, the data and stuff like that, and all like the transformed, easily to read data and just feed it into that internal site. And so like I'll probably say like one of my biggest challenge was just for me, I felt like I really wasn't as prepared for the internship. Like even though like I had like the foundation for it, I felt like it was just a completely different experience compared to like university, because this was like real world like experience and stuff like that. And so like one of my biggest challenges was just, I guess, trying to believe in myself and thinking that I was able to actually do the work that they give me, and just believing that like, all right, like I could actually do this because, like they gave me this internship for a reason. But after like some time, like I started getting like a lot of experiences, and I started like just using technologies and tools that I never even knew existed. For example, like Docker, which is like a virtual environment that allows you to like run different programs. I never heard of it, started using it, and it was actually pretty fun. And then I got better at just using Git, some Git terminologies that I didn't even know existed, like cherry picking. Like, what is cherry picking? Like, what? And then there were other things too that I was also able to learn from this internship experience, which I really enjoyed. And this internship was actually pretty last minute. So I interviewed in March, and yeah, because I interviewed in March because the other internship that I had ended up canceling. And so like, it was like basically just took a month for me to go through like the interview process and stuff like that. And unfortunately, because of coronavirus, I wasn't able to go into the office to do the interview. And so for me, it was mostly just on the phone. The first interview stage was behavioral. And then the second one was, well, the second and third one were both technical. And for that one, like they sent me the link, and then I basically just opened up the link and they can basically see what I'm typing, and along with like the question and stuff like that as I'm on the phone with them. And so like we read the question, and then we would just go over the question and stuff like that. And I'll probably say like one of my biggest advice during those type of interviews is like, if you're stuck, do not hesitate to let them know that you're stuck. Because for me, like it was during the third stage where like I knew what I had to do, but I just didn't know where to go next. And so because of that, I let them know like, hey, like I know I'm supposed to do this, this, and this, but where I'm at right now, I don't know how to get there. And I felt like because of that, that's what helped me basically kind of get the internship in a way, because I admitted that I can't really do this on my own and that I need help. And that's what like being on like a software engineering team is about, like working together as a team and just basically just trying to get help. And then my fourth stage of the interview was just, it was still technical, but just asking about like my resume and stuff like that. And like me just talking about like my experiences that I've done in the past, and basically why I'm a good fit for not only the company, but also for the team. And yeah, that was basically just like my whole experience from like the interview to the internship.
That is really inspiring to hear, just like so many different parts of that. Of just like, I think that's a really, really, really good example of you being incredibly resourceful in like a time of huge uncertainty in March, to like be able to go from my internship was canceled to, instead of like, if I was in your position, I might have just been like, well, oh no, like my summer's screwed. And I've given, like, I literally might have just like not figured out a plan. And I think that that's just like a really great example. And even just like hearing that as well for your technical interview, that even when you got stuck, to like keep, instead of like going like freezing and being like, I can't say anything, to just admitting it and working with the interviewer is really amazing. And I've heard of times where I had a friend who was interviewing with Google, and the same thing happened, and the person who was interviewing them wouldn't help them at all. And it ended up indicating to her that maybe she didn't actually want to work with some, like in a certain environments. Like figuring out like if you're a good fit is also really important. So that's just like incredibly helpful to hear. So with that, there's like so many things I want to come back to with what you said, but Chandra, you're up.
Hi everyone. I'm senior this year. For this summer, actually, I continued my internship from last school year. I've been interning with UNOM as a scholars intern since last spring semester. Yeah, and then it's not completely like computer science internship, but then I work in a market development team. So UNOM is a insurance company where in the market development team, they go out to the brokers and then to the clients to sell their product. And the main part of my job was to develop an automated tool. So I used BVA code to generate an automated tool where they don't have to put all those informations and then they have to create those presentations like manually. So from the automation tool, now they don't have to use, like, they don't have to work it manually. It just like creates automatically. And I created almost like more than 30 reports in like past 7 months. And also I also use scripts, SQL scripts, and work with different databases in a ClickView tool. And I create a lot of dashboards. And currently I'm also using Python because since BVA code is not like used that much. So I'm transferring like BVA code into the Python and then like to work with different data. It's really nice. And also I get to, since this is like a long-term internship, it's gonna go all over my school year. I get to job shadow to the different departments. I get to know different people. And also since I joined the company before the pandemic happened. So I knew all the people that I was working with. So it wasn't like, it didn't matter to me. I mean, like it wasn't that difficult to convert me to the remote work because they provided me laptop, like 2 extra monitors, like keyboards, like desks, tables, like chairs, everything, honestly. It was really nice. And we have these meetings, huddles, and then scholars intern meetings going on every week. And it's good to nice to connect with people, and it's really nice.
I think it's really cool that you were able to have like a Worcester internship during the school year and balance that with being like a junior and a senior. And also being able to like bring your computer science skills into a team that kind of like our cheat for that first internship is kind of like, okay, like you are like the computer science person, help us. Yeah, so what was it like with the interview process and like getting that in the first place?
For me, I got the link from you, obviously. We had this conversation. But then I had 3 interviews rounds. For the first round, it was higher view virtual interview process. And then I had an interview about behavioral questions with the HR. And then I had an interview with my manager. For the interview process, what happened was like I had this internship before this one last summer with another insurance company called Mimic. So there also I created an automated tool where they had to, before they used to check their emails manually to monitor the job runs, but then like I work with this team where we automatically created an tool where it used to automatically monitor all the emails. They don't have to do it manually. So I had kind of this experience before, so it was helpful for me to get this position, I guess, because they were looking for someone who had these experiences already. So it was nice. It was helpful, yeah.
That's really interesting to hear as well that you also had 3 rounds. Like that seems to be like a consistent pattern with the interviews. I know it's something we'll talk about more as we keep going, so that's definitely helpful to hear. Nicholas, you're the last one until I go. You're up.
I made a slideshow. It's really short. Can I share that?
Go for it.
I worked at National Grid this summer. I can start out by talking about how I got the position, or the application process, instead of talking about that at the end. But Evan shared his master list with me, and I applied to 75 internships last year, which was a lot. I ended up withdrawing from about 40 or 50 of them, because I got a position pretty quickly. And so my interview process and my internship experience is very different from a lot of other people's here. First off, I immediately went to a phone interview, and I got an offer after the phone interview. So it was a very, very fast interview process, which was kind of surprising to me because I expected it to be slower. And I didn't know exactly what utility as a field for a computer scientist, but I was assigned to an area where I would be working in the IT department doing computer science. But then as the summer approached and coronavirus hit, my original position got canceled, which I was a little bit sad about. But they worked really hard to make sure that they still gave everyone an internship no matter what. So they moved me to a different department and a slightly different position. And that was actually a really, really great thing because I got some expected to get. So the department that they moved me to, well, I was still working within IT, but I was working on a project called Vault Enablement, which was an initiative in the transmission section of the company. So basically in utility, there's transmission and distribution, which are like transmission are the big lines you see going over hills, and distribution are the ones on the streets. That's how you can kind of, so transmission brings power from generators to places, and distribution brings it from like those substations to your home. And so what they were doing was implementing new software and practices, so then they could get better functionality, understand their data more, and move into the future of using software instead of Excel spreadsheets and more dated systems that they currently have in place. So I'm going to go to the next one here. They gave me 3 main objectives, and some of these were very broad, which is part of what made this a very interesting experience. They wanted me to calculate the costs of replacing end-of-life systems. So there are some systems that were at the end of their lifespan, were no longer supported by their vendors, and so they wanted me to talk to a bunch of subject matter experts and create estimates on how much it would cost to do spot replacements of those systems that are already being replaced by this initiative. So we can then claim that as a benefit of doing the project. And along those same lines, they wanted me to monetize some previously unidentified benefits of the project. So this involved looking for risks that were being mitigated by this new initiative, or other like either regulatory fines we wouldn't be getting because of it. There's some other like very, very strange risks that or other very strange benefits that you wouldn't initially monetize that have to do with like environmental costs, like outage costs, stuff like that, that isn't being factored in generally. So I looked at a lot of different areas like that and talked to a lot of subject matter experts on all of that. And then the last thing I did was create justification, or I documented justifications for an MDM tool, which is a master data management tool. And so all three of these things had nothing to do with computer science. It was kind of funny, but all of them had to do with IT systems that the fundamental understandings of were based on my previous experiences in computer science. So though I did not write a single line of code during my internship, the classes I've taken directly contributed to me understanding the concepts I was working with. So from this experience, I got three main takeaways. I really learned what it was like to work in a large regulated company environment. And one of the big things about that is working through the bureaucracy of having to talk to, like, you know, everyone in a chain of understanding to understand what is actually going on. So for every single tool or every single risk, I had to talk to 6 different people at varying levels until I found the person who actually knew what they were talking about and wasn't just having information fed up to them. But that was a really good experience because that applies to any company I'll ever work in. Also, because it's such a heavily regulated industry, all of the work that I did had to stand up to really heavy criticism because we would be showing it to not only the company, the higher ups in the company, but also regulators. So all of my numbers had to add up and had to be based on something that I could cite. Another thing I learned was I conducted, at one point, the number of meetings I was setting up was increasing exponentially. I would set up a meeting and it would result in 2 more. And I was really, really worried about that for a little bit, but they started to slow down about halfway through the internship. But I learned really quickly that you need to have a really strong agenda whenever you set up a meeting, because I would be setting up meetings with anyone from directors to VPs on a daily basis. And as an intern, leading a meeting where you have a VP and some subject matter experts is really, really frightening because they're all so much more experienced and powerful than you. But if you have a really structured agenda set up and you also know exactly what deliverables you're looking for from the meeting, it really helps them go smoothly and makes you seem like you know what you're doing and you are worth talking to. And then the last big area was solving real world problems. None of these objectives that they gave me were easy and straightforward. They didn't have like a clear path laid out for them. So I really had to determine what the scope of the problem was and then decide on a way to approach it, figure out what resources I needed, who I needed to talk to, and then follow through on those resources, get the information, adjust my strategy as I encountered roadblocks, and create a process myself for making the estimates that I did. So that's a really, really good experience because unlike in a classroom, they didn't lay out the whole procedure for me. I had to come up with almost all of it myself. And I got it approved and I got it looked at by my coworkers, but it will all at the end of the day. And one really quick note, I was the only intern working on this project. I was working with a team of 4, which then was reduced to a team of 3 later on. But I was the only intern and most of the other employees had been working for the company for somewhere between 10 and 30 years. And they all incorporated me in like I was an equal to them in the project. And that was a very incredible feeling. So one last slide I wanted to talk about. Final thoughts. So this was a great introduction to working in IT. The company culture was incredible. And so it was a great experience that even through a virtual setting, I got to feel a real connection to my coworkers and the teamwork was incredible. Again, experience working with a diverse team, not only from the standpoint of people from different fields working together, because we had people from business, we had people from IT, we had people from engineering, but also from diverse locations because it was virtual. So we could have people from New York and people from Massachusetts and people from the South, like all over the place. And the last thing is I developed a lot of really professionally relevant skills, understanding ideas and doing benefit cost analysis and stuff like that. And now behavioral interviews are a breeze for me. Fantastic experience. And yeah, I guess that's a kind of an overview what I talked about. See, there's something in the chat.
I think that's incredibly just like a really, really useful like, perspective of looking at it and sort of seeing like how valuable the whole experience was. Like it sounds like overall like our group has had a lot of like diverse experiences in terms of like what the internship actually entailed, and it sounded like you did an absolutely amazing job. So
Oh yeah,
I
the one thing I forgot to mention is that I actually, they kept me on part-time afterwards, so I'm still working for them. And actually, I've been making a spreadsheet for them in the background during this meeting because I'm technically on the clock right now.
So can I ask you a bit about that? Like, what
Absolutely.
are you, so you're coming into the fall, still working part-time for them. What, like, are you still working on the same project or has it morphed into something new?
So I finished some of my objectives, but
Mhm.
they can always be expanded on because they were pretty arbitrary, or I can always improve the information or have more meetings with people to refine the numbers that I got. I found about $70 million worth of savings,
Whoa.
but I can always make that more precise. I can maybe even increase that. Were appreciative of the work that I did and the role that I played in the company. And so they asked if I could stay on, and they can keep me for up to 20 hours a week during the semester because it's all virtual already. It was a very, very easy transition. I just brought my laptop to school, and I'm already ready to go. And then I already have most of my objectives set up from before, and they're just adding to that slightly, giving me some new direction, giving me new tasks as they appear. And it's been a very smooth transition. So yeah.
Awesome. I'm honestly so happy to hear that you had such a good experience. Um, I'm going to talk a bit about my experience too. So I, like Evan, was working for Capital One this summer. And so like Evan, I really thought that the internship was going to just get canceled outright because I had a spring internship working for a hospital, and that internship was canceled in March. Unsurprisingly, I was not an essential worker in the hospital, which was absolutely the right decision. So I really didn't think the internship would happen. When I was interviewing for the internship, I interviewed for it in December. I was convinced that I was like super late to getting an internship and didn't think I would get one. And I was working as a hostess in a like pizza place down the street at Antonio's, and my shift ended at 4 p.m. and there was a snowstorm that was starting at 4 p.m. So I ran home to my apartment and threw like, you know, like a blazer and a skirt and like a blouse into my backpack and got a lift, and there was like already like 2 inches of snow. And so like the lift car literally, like I was surprised there were any lift cars, and the car like literally skidded to Union Station, and I went into Boston and flew out the next day like at the tail end of a snowstorm. So the whole thing was like quite dramatic. And I found out it was like 3 rounds, just like Evan said, where the first round I had like a technical problem that I had to solve, which I was really nervous for. It was a leak code problem, if you've heard of leak code. And then I had like a case study where they said like, suppose our bank acquired another bank, and they have this like mobile software, like what's the business case? Why is this useful? And so just sort of talking through with someone like a business case. And then finally it was a behavioral interview where, like Faustina, they just sort of took out my resume and said like, tell us about this, and give us some examples of times where like you worked through a conflict, or so what's something you're really proud of. And I left and I wasn't really sure if I had done well or not. It was like, we'll see. I just have to like remove myself emotionally for like a few days and I'll find out. And I got a call the next day that I got it. So I was really relieved and just like thankful, because the previous summer I had worked as a high school teacher for the summer for students in a really amazing program that's hosted here at Clark. And it was like a really wonderful, impactful experience. but I also was hoping to try something that was more corporate and see what that whole world was like. So I was excited to have like an actual hands-on software engineering internship for the summer to see what it was like. But I still like really enjoyed teaching the summer before. And so something that I loved about this summer internship is they sent me a laptop. It was all virtual. So I was able to work from home with my family, like with my 14-year-old sister hanging around in the background and my cat interrupting business meetings. And they have a program at Capital One that is kind of like the Capital One version of what I was doing last summer. Where they have high school kids, middle school kids, elementary kids who are interested in learning how to code to get to code. And they had like 3-day workshops where different Capital One employees would volunteer and mentor students. And so I started doing that in like my free time beyond the work I was doing with my team at Capital One. And then the person who was in charge of it messaged me and asked me if I wanted to be part of like a pilot program that they had, where instead of like the 3-day boot camps, they were going to have like a live coding session. And so I got to like develop a curriculum for how to teach students AWS, or how to use GitHub, or how to use Java or Python, and build like a game for them or a website for them in 90 minutes. And so there were only like in the entire company, there were only 7 other employees who were working on this project. And so it really was just like a moment of being in the right place at the right time, and someone having favor for like, I have no idea how he even knew to message me, but I was so excited because like this is like my passion beyond like computer science. Like if I get to share like getting to code with younger students, it's like it completely makes my day. So I got to teach like a couple hundred students and like design the curriculum to teach them. And I forgot how snarky 7th graders are. They like put the snarkiest comments in the Zoom chat. One of them sent us a message of just like letters across the screen and was like, sorry, I was cleaning my MacBook. It's just like the silliest, like most ridiculous things. But I really love the experience of getting to work with full-time employees. And then at the end of the summer, I was able to make a connection between Capital One and the program I worked with last summer so that they can potentially do a sponsored program together, which is like also the thing that makes me like the absolute happiest in the world, is to be able to make a connection between like 2 resources that I really appreciate and value, and so that they can have more value. So like regardless if I ever work for Capital One again or work for the program I taught in, like I was really, really, really thankful to be able to take pieces of both and then combine them. So for the actual internship experience, I was building some software. I built like it was like web development stuff that I had no idea how to do and have never like learned. And it was definitely pretty overwhelming, where like everyone else in my team had extensive experience using TypeScript and JavaScript, and I've never used either. And it was just like a very welcoming experience despite that. So kind of similar to Nicholas, I actually didn't code barely at all for my actual internship. Like almost all of it was figuring out security configurations for the software we were building to make sure that we weren't going to be leaking financial data. So I had like actual nightmares that I was going to like, I had like an actual nightmare that I was going to like misconfigure something and then cause a security leak. And I would wake up one day and my laptop would be on fire and everything would have burned down. All because they let an intern like configure security settings. So I ended up working a lot with their security teams and with the architect for the commercial line of business, which let me meet a lot more people virtually in the company than I would have otherwise. So that's a little bit about the experience. And then one thing I wanted us to talk about, if you guys are comfortable, is just like what our biggest challenges when applying to internships. And I know that like sometimes when I like will talk about an experience, it sounds like it was like incredibly successful and I did everything right. And like I'm just super good at like networking or talking to people or applying to internships and interviewing. And it's not necessarily true. So I wanted to tell like another story of the internship that I didn't have this summer because I messed up. So this past October, I went to Grace Hopper in Orlando, Florida, with Faustina. And we both got scholarships to be able to go, and it was a really great experience. There are all these companies who are trying to recruit you. And I got an interview with Liberty Mutual, which is a insurance company. And it went really well. And they said, like, you did a great job today. We really want to bring you into the next round. We're going to send you a link to a technical interview and just do the technical interview. And then we'll move you on to the following round. Just like, you know, fill it out in the next couple days. It's very like flexible. Just do it whenever you have time. So I was incredibly insecure and thought that I would fail the technical interview. I was like convinced that I was going to just like mess up the technical interview. So I got a link in my email to the interview and had the option to do it, had the time to do it, procrastinated, came back to Clark, was swamped with assignments, and then procrastinated more. And I actually never did the technical interview. I was so afraid that I would fail the interview and mess up that I like never replied to them, which is like very unprofessional. You should at least like decline the offer or like communicate with them. So I wanted to tell that story because like you guys aren't going to know that otherwise. Like I still got an internship. And it was just a huge lesson to me that like when someone gives you an opportunity, no matter how much you think you're going to fail at it, you still like you need to fail the technical interview, like click on the link and do it anyway. Because even though it's like incredibly scary, you're still going to grow from it and learn from it. And maybe you won't fail. Maybe you'll end up getting an offer. So when I got an email from Capital One saying like, we want to bring you in for an interview, I was terrified and I almost didn't reply to that email either. So I guess I just want to leave that as an encouragement that like, if you're also prone to being afraid of failing and procrastinating, that it's worth it to fail anyway and try because maybe you'll surprise yourself. So
like add on to like what Naomi said in terms of just like interviews, because not gonna lie, I'm also the same way too when it comes to like interviews, because it's extremely scary and it's extremely like a nervous process. And like something that someone told me was like, in order to get comfortable, you have to be uncomfortable. And so like no matter how hard these interviews are, no matter how scary they can be, like just still kind of like go for it and just think of it as like you just practicing instead of it actually being an interview. And kind of like just trick your mind a little bit, being like, oh, like I'm just like explaining code to like some stranger who doesn't really know much about coding. And that can help you like calm you down a little bit to just be able to just go through the interview.
absolutely. Yeah, and Evan, if you don't mind, I want to share some advice that you gave me because you were definitely a huge encouragement last fall. If you guys are ever like, just like if you're watching the recording and you ever are worried, message Evan, he will help you. Or any of the people on this panel, like we will absolutely talk to you. But Evan gave me some advice before going to the Capital One interview because I was incredibly nervous. And he said, if they are even interviewing you, it's because they want to hire you. They are not looking to figure out like how they can cut you off the list. They are looking to be able to hire you. Like they want to hire you. It's not like they're looking to see you fail. And just that really helps me change my perspective and go like, I'm gonna let out a huge deep breath and maybe I won't get the internship, but I know that if they're interviewing me, it's because they already know that they want to hire me. And I think that's just like a huge boost as well. Yep. So I think.
I quickly wanted to add just one thing, is that like for me, in my experience at least, it feels like one of the hardest parts, especially as a Clark student, for getting internships, or especially your first internship, is just getting past the initial them looking at your resume phase. And so that's why like I applied to 75 internships. That's a little extra, but just the more internships you apply, okay, Evan's shaking his head, but uh, the more internships you apply to, the more of a chance you have of getting that next step with one of them. Because it does feel a little bit random. It does feel like there is no particular rhyme or reason to who you get a next step from and who you don't. So the more that you can put yourself out there, it's not only great experience, like the more interviews you do, the better you get at it. But also at the same time, it will make you feel more confident doing more of these interviews, and you don't know which company is going to give you a next step and which company you might end up working for. And so just getting your name out there enough to get in contact with a real recruiter, being a Clark student, you almost always will have a really good behavioral interview. And so once you can get to the point where you get to sell yourself and talk about the experiences that you've had and do the behavioral section, you've already gotten much closer to getting that internship. So the most important thing is just making sure that you apply to places so you get that opportunity to show who you really are and what you're really capable of.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's about getting your name out there. The more you apply to, the more odds that someone will give you a next step. And once they see your resume and say, okay, we're going to bring him or them to an interview, then it's in your hands, right? Then you can study for the interview, you can practice. The only part that's not in your hands is them doing that glance at your resume when you apply and saying yes or no, like next steps or not steps. So everything else you can almost control, right? So that's kind of the scariest part. And for the people who are here who are interested in applying for internships this fall for next summer, Naomi, if you'd like, I can go ahead and share some resources and kind of connect them with the spreadsheet I have, if you'd like.
Okay. The spreadsheet is incredible.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick, and then I'll tell everyone how to access this, but let's do this, share screen. All right, so hopefully people can see this. Basically, there's 3 different sheets on the spreadsheet I have. This first start here one is a ton of tips, processes, like kind of how to interview. I mean, it tells you the first thing you want to do is get your resume up and running. You want to make a resume, all that. If you need help with that or anything, you can contact me. I mean, my contact information is on here. We even have a Slack channel to coordinate this stuff. But you want to get your resume ready and you want to set up a LinkedIn. And once you have those 2, you are ready to start applying to existing opportunities. So if you're looking for an internship, so if you're class of 22, 23, or 24, you're not going to be looking for a full-time position for next summer. You'll be looking for an internship. So we have this sheet down at the bottom here. And we got a ton of companies that are open. I mean, Morgan Stanley, right? We have Toronto Dominion Bank, Goldman Sachs, Facebook, Prudential, like hundreds and hundreds of companies that have open applications now. In the last 2 days, so September 1st and 2nd, I think I've added 20 new ones. And basically, I find these from all over the internet. I find these from Fortune 500s, like career websites, all that stuff. And like Nicholas said, you apply to a bunch and you hope to hear back from some. There's some other things you can do to increase your odds. You can reach out to people on LinkedIn, and I also talk about that in the guide on the first page too, if you really want to maximize your odds, especially for opportunities that haven't come out yet. But basically, as you can see, we have columns. You grab a color, you make yourself a column, and you can show that you've applied to each internship. You have all these options of where you are in the process. You can track it, like, did you get the coding challenge? Are you on final interview? Did you get to an on-site, final? Did you receive an offer, accept the offer, etc.? So this is just a really big spreadsheet. I'm continuously updating it. Should be updating it through the rest of the fall and winter. But basically, I'd start applying. If you do start applying, you should start at the bottom because those are the most recent ones, and then work your way up. But in order to get access to this resource, I'll put my email into it's access controlled now because I want it just to be for Clark students. So I don't want the link to be posted on the internet because I worked like hard and I really want this to be specifically for Clark students. So I will have to give you access to it. So if you want access to this to start applying to internships now, because some open this summer, some are opening every day now. Just email me at the email I'm putting into the Zoom chat here, and email me, say that you're interested in it, getting access to the sheet, and give me your Gmail, because if you have a Gmail, you can edit it. And I'll send you an invite, and you can get started. Pretty good step-by-step breakdown instructions on the first panel. So I know that's how Nicholas got his internship last semester. Some people who've already started using it this time have gotten final rounds at Goldman Sachs. All the internships on the list are paid. You're going to be paid very well. They're in all across the country, wherever the headquarters or offices are, but they will pay you enough to rent there in the summer if they don't actually cover your housing. So the location should never be an issue. Pay should never be an issue. All around pretty solid internships and stuff. So yeah, just go ahead and give me an email at the email I posted in chat, and I'll give it back to Naomi.
And also, like, if you do end up getting an internship that like isn't paying well or is paying well, but they're not offering you like housing or anything like that, there are resources at Clark University that will be willing to help you, one, look for housing, and two, like help you also pay for housing. I know for me, like my internship last summer, they were paying me, but they weren't helping me with housing. And there were some scholarships that I was able to fortunately get at Clark University to help pay for those. So when it comes to like internships and in terms of like relocation and stuff like that in the future, like don't let that prevent you or hinder you from applying to these internships, because they are definitely worth it. The experience and everything can be life-changing. So don't let those like location and housing and all of that prevent you, because they will be resources to help you guys.
Thank you, Faustina and Evan. Yes, that's really helpful. I think definitely if anyone would like to have help with like a resume check, there's resources at Clark, and also I know that within the CS department, any of us here would be willing to take a look and help you sort of like give it the best shot that you have. Is there any last minute questions? Does anyone have any questions? I know we have like 4 audience members.
Also, feel free to tell your friends. I mean, I personally, for the internship list and stuff for Clark students, I'm working on my senior project this whole year, or an honors project for the CS department, and I'm planning to make this accessible to everyone through Clark, through your Clark login and stuff, and make it really pretty and stuff. So that should be ready next year for next year's process. But please tell your friends. I mean, yeah, join the Slack that's on the sheet. And we have a really good community. Everyone's going to help each other review your resumes, prepare you for interviews, because we've all been there before, so we know what to go in knowing. So please don't hesitate to reach out to anyone here.
Awesome. All right, so with that, I think we can stop the recording. And I'm really thankful that each of you guys paneled today and that we did this. I know I was pretty nervous to like do it, even though it's like just our Clark community. So I'm glad that we all paneled, and it sounds like everyone had a really fruitful internship experience.
Thank you.